The huge silver ship came down through Earth's clouds like a falling star. It landed in the thick green forest that humans called the Amazon. Trees shook and birds flew away as the ship touched the ground. Steam came up from the wet earth, where the hot metal met the jungle floor. Professor Zikthara stepped out first. She looked like a giant crystal that could walk and talk. Her body was clear blue and caught the sunlight that came through the trees. Behind her came 23 students from different worlds across the galaxy. They all looked very different from each other. Some had many arms, some had big eyes. Some were covered in thick fur, some had skin like metal. But they all had one thing in common. They were the best students in the galaxy. They had come to Earth to study the smallest living things on the planet. The biggest student was KilledStrongest. He came from a planet called Gorvex. His people were called Titans. They were warriors who fought battles across the stars. KilledStrongest was 12 feet tall. His skin was thick and hard like armor. His muscles were bigger than tree trunks. He could lift a car with one hand. He could punch through solid rock. KilledStrongest did not want to be here at first. His people thought studying small things was weak. Warriors should fight big enemies and win great battles. But the war chiefs told him to come. They said he needed to learn about weak things so he could understand his enemies better. The other students were scared of KilledStrongest. They had heard stories about Titan warriors. They knew his people had taken over 17 different star systems. They had beaten armies with ships and guns and laser weapons. KilledStrongest had killed many enemies in battle. His hands had crushed the life out of soldiers from other worlds. But KilledStrongest was not here to fight. He was here to learn. The Galactic Academy had sent this group to study Earth's tiny creatures. Their computers said Earth had more small life forms than any other world they knew about. Most of these creatures were so small that regular eyes could not see them. Professor Zikthara looked at her students. Her voice sounded like wind chimes when she spoke. Remember why we are here. This planet has life forms that our science cannot explain. Some are smaller than the tip of your finger, but our machines say they are very dangerous. The students looked around at the green forest. It seemed peaceful. Birds sang in the trees. Butterflies flew past them. A monkey swung from branch to branch above their heads. Nothing looked dangerous. Everything looked weak and small. How can such tiny things be dangerous? Asked Yelinara. She came from a water world and had 6 arms like an octopus. My people have weapons that can destroy whole cities. What can something smaller than my fingernail do to us? KilledStrongest laughed. The sound was deep and loud like thunder. These Earth creatures are nothing. I have fought giant space forms that could eat ships. I have killed metal robots taller than buildings. I am not afraid of bugs and tiny spiders. Just then, a human woman came walking through the trees. She was small compared to the aliens. She had brown hair and kind eyes. She wore simple clothes that were good for walking in the jungle. She carried a backpack full of tools and bottles. Hello, she said. I am Katie Walsh. I study spiders for a living. Your people asked me to help you find the smallest creatures. On our planet, the aliens looked down at her. Even the smallest alien student was twice as tall as Katie. She looked like a child next to them. Her skin was soft. She had no armor or weapons. She looked like she could be hurt very easily. Professor Zikthara spoke to Katie through a machine that could change alien words into human words. We are honored to meet you, Dr. Walsh. Our computers say you know more about small Earth predators than anyone else. Katie smiled. I have been studying spiders for 20 years. We have over 45,000 different types of spiders on Earth. Some are big enough to catch birds, but the ones you want to see are much smaller. Some are so tiny that you need a special glass to see them clearly. Kreck's volume bent down to look at Katie. His huge head was bigger than her whole body. You study these creatures? Are they dangerous to your kind? Katie thought about how to answer. Well, some spiders can hurt humans, but most are harmless. The smallest ones are usually the most interesting. They have learned amazing ways to hunt and survive. Hunt? Eleonora asked. Something smaller. Than a fingernail can hunt? Oh, yes, Katie said. Size does not matter much in nature. Some of our smallest spiders are our best hunters. They can take down prey much bigger than themselves. The alien students looked at each other. This did not make sense to them. In space, big things beat small things. Big ships had bigger guns. Big armies won more battles. How could something tiny be a good hunter? Katie started walking deeper into the forest. Come on. I will show you some of the smallest spiders on Earth, but we need to be careful. The jungle has many creatures that can surprise you. Kreck's volume laughed again. I am not worried about Earth creatures. Nothing on this planet could hurt a Titan warrior. Katie looked back at him. Something in her eyes looked worried. But she did not say anything. She just kept walking into the green shadows of the forest. The alien students followed her. Their machines beeped and clicked as they scanned the trees and plants around them. They found thousands of tiny life forms. Ants, beetles, flies, and many other small creatures. But they had not found the spiders yet. As they walked deeper into the jungle, none of them knew that they were about to discover something that would change how the whole galaxy thought about Earth and its people. Katie led the group deeper into the Amazon forest. The trees grew thicker and the air became more humid. Strange sounds came from all around them. Monkeys called to each other high above. Insects buzzed and clicked. Water dripped from leaves. Even though it was not raining, the alien students turned on their scanning machines. These devices could see things that regular eyes could not see. They could look inside living things and tell what they were made of. They could find the smallest creatures hiding in the tiniest spaces. There, Katie said, pointing to a fallen tree covered in moss. This is where we will find what you are looking for. She knelt down beside the rotting log. With a small tool, she carefully lifted a piece of bark. Underneath, the wood was full of tiny holes and tunnels. Small creatures moved around in the darkness. These logs are like apartment buildings for small animals, Katie explained. Hundreds of different creatures live in one piece of dead wood. Ants, beetles, spiders, and many others. Professor Zekthara moved her crystal body closer to the log. Her internal lights flickered as she scanned the area. Amazing. I am detecting over 200 different life forms in this small space. Eleonora held up her scanning device. The machine made soft beeping sounds. Professor, I am finding something strange. These readings do not match anything in our database. She showed the screen to the other students. Numbers and symbols flashed across it. The machine was detecting something that seemed impossible. What is it? Asked another student named Bextar. He looked like a large insect with metal wings. These tiny spiders, Eleonora said. The machine says they have poison in their bodies. But the poison is more complex than anything we have ever seen. Katie nodded. Spider venom is very interesting. Each type of spider has different chemicals in its bite. Some are simple. Some are very complex. The smallest spiders often have the most interesting venom. She reached into her backpack and pulled out a small glass container. Inside was a spider, so tiny that it looked like a speck of dust. This is called Pachudigua. It is one of the smallest spiders in the world. Its body is less than half a millimeter long. The alien students crowded around to look at the container. They had to use their scanning machines to see the spider clearly. Even with their advanced technology, the creature was hard to see. It looks like nothing, Kreck's volume said. How can something so small be worth studying? Katie smiled. That is what makes it so amazing. This little spider can catch and eat insects that are much bigger than it is. It does this with its venom. She connected the container to one of the alien scanning machines. The device began to analyze the spider's body chemistry. What it found made all the students gasp. This cannot be right, Baxter said, looking at his screen. The machine says this creature has over 200 different chemicals in its poison. That is correct, Katie said. Spider venom is like a chemical weapon. It has many different parts that work together. Some parts stop the prey from moving. Other parts break down the prey's insides so the spider can eat it. Professor Zektharas. Lights flickered faster. She was excited and worried at the same time. Dr. Walsh, our computers are saying this venom could affect many different types of living things. Not just insects. Yes, Katie said. Spider venom often works on many different animals. That is why some spider bites can hurt humans, even though spiders did not evolve to hunt humans. Yelenara looked at her scanner again. The numbers kept getting bigger as the machine found more chemicals in the tiny spider. Professor, I think this venom could hurt creatures from other worlds too. The chemicals attack basic life functions that most living things share. The students began to understand what this meant. They came from many different planets. Their bodies were very different from each other, but they all had nerves and blood and muscles. The spider's venom was designed to attack these basic parts of life. Impossible, Krex Volume said. My people have skin like armor. We have been poisoned by weapons from many worlds. Nothing can hurt a Titan warrior. Katie looked up at the huge alien. Well, spider venom is different from most poisons. It is not designed to be stopped by thick skin or armor. It works by getting into the bloodstream and nervous system. She pulled out another container. This one had a slightly bigger spider in it. This is a black widow spider. It is not the smallest, but it shows how spider venom works. One bite from this spider can kill a human. The aliens looked at the black widow. It was still very small compared to them. But their machines showed that its venom was even more complex than the tiny Pachu Digua. How do humans survive on this planet? Asked Bekstar. If these small creatures can kill you, how do you live normal lives? Katie laughed. We have learned to be careful. We also have medicines that can help if someone gets bitten. And most spiders do not want to bite humans. They only bite when they are scared or protecting themselves. She looked around at all the alien students. You have to understand something about Earth. Evolution here has been going on for billions of years. Every creature has had to learn to survive by fighting or hiding or using tricks. The spiders learned to use chemistry. Professor Zekthara was quiet for a long time. Her crystal body dimmed as she thought about what they had learned. Dr. Walsh, how many creatures like this exist on your planet? Thousands, Katie said. We have venomous snakes, poisonous frogs, deadly jellyfish, toxic plants, and many others. Earth is full of creatures that use chemicals to hunt or defend themselves. The alien students looked at each other with new understanding. They had come to Earth thinking it was a primitive world with weak creatures. But now they saw that Earth was actually a planet where every living thing had been forced to become a warrior in its own way. We need to collect samples, Professor Zekthara said. The Galactic Academy must know about this. Katie helped them gather several different types of small spiders. Each one went into a special container that would keep it alive and safe. Alien machines scanned each spider and recorded everything they found. As they worked, Krex Volume grew more and more impatient. He was a warrior. He was used to fighting enemies he could see and touch. These tiny spiders seemed like nothing to him. I still do not believe these small things are dangerous, he said. My people have conquered star systems. We are not afraid of creatures smaller than our fingernails. Katie looked at him with concern. Maybe you should not touch the containers. Even though they are sealed, it is better to be safe. But Krek's volume was not listening. He was thinking about his warrior pride, and how silly it seemed to be afraid of such tiny creatures. Katie worked frantically to save Krexval's life. She had never treated an alien before, but she understood how spider venom worked. The poison was attacking his nervous system and shutting down his vital organs one by one. I need more information about his body, she said to the other students. How many lungs does he have? Where exactly are his hearts located? Ilanara used her scanner on Krexval's massive form. 3 lungs in his upper chest. 4 hearts spread across his torso. His nervous system has 3 main centers instead of just 1 brain like humans. Katie applied anti-venom to the bite site, even though she knew it might not work on alien. Biology. The medicine was designed for human bodies, not for 12-foot-tall warriors from other worlds. Professor Zekthara was sending emergency signals to their ship and to the Galactic Medical Council. Her crystal body flickered rapidly as she transmitted data about what was happening. I am sending all our readings to the medical experts, she said. But they have never seen anything like this before. Beckstar looked at his scanner readings with disbelief. The venom is spreading through his entire body. It is attacking every major system at once. How can something so small create such powerful poison? Katie continued working on Krek's volume while she explained. Evolution on Earth has been going on for billions of years. Every creature has had to develop ways to survive. Spiders learned to make very efficient poisons because they needed to hunt creatures much bigger than themselves. But this is impossible, said another student named Kexanova. She looked like a tall plant with many leaves. In our part of the galaxy, big creatures are always stronger than small ones. Size means power. Not on Earth, Katie said. Here, intelligence and chemistry can beat size and strength. This tiny spider does not need to be big. Its poison does all the work. As she worked, Katie began to realize something that frightened her. The alien students were learning a terrible lesson about Earth and its creatures. They had come here thinking Earth was a primitive world with weak life forms. But now they were seeing that Earth was actually one of the most dangerous planets. In the galaxy, Krexval's breathing became more difficult. The venom was affecting his lung muscles. Katie had to help him breathe by pressing on his chest in rhythm. Is there anything on your worlds like this? She asked the students. Professor. Zekthara's lights dimmed as she thought. We have some poisonous creatures, but nothing this complex. Most weapons in our part of space use energy or physical force. We do not have biological weapons like this. Yulanara was studying the readings from her scanner. Professor, I am detecting something else. The venom is not just attacking his current body functions. It is changing his body chemistry. Even if he survives, he might be permanently affected. This made Katie realize how serious the situation was. Spider venom could cause lasting damage to the nervous system. Krek's volume might never be the same warrior he was before. We need to get him to a hospital, Katie said. But I do not think your ship's medical bay will have the right equipment. What kind of equipment do we need? Professor Zekthara asked. Anti-venom designed for his species, machines that can support his heart and lung functions, and drugs that can protect his nervous system, Katie explained. None of that exists because no one has ever studied how Earth venoms affect aliens. The reality of the situation was becoming clear to all the students. Their advanced technology, which could heal almost any injury from space battles, was useless against a biological weapon created by evolution. Meanwhile, Katie's emergency call was being received by human medical teams around the world. But they were just as confused as the aliens. No human doctor had ever treated an alien for spider bite. Dr. Greg Martinez, a toxicology expert in Brazil, was the first to respond to the emergency call. "I am sending a helicopter with antivenom and life support equipment," he radioed to Katie, "but I have no idea if human medicine will work on alien biology." As they waited for help to arrive, the alien students began to understand the full implications of what they were witnessing. They had thought Earth was a safe place to study primitive life forms, but now they realized that Earth was actually a biological weapons laboratory that had been running for billions of years. "Dr. Walsh," Beckstar said quietly, "if this tiny spider can do this to our strongest warrior, what about your other creatures? You mentioned venomous snakes and poisonous frogs." Katie nodded grimly. "We have thousands of species that use venom or poison. Some are much more dangerous than this spider. We have snakes that can kill an elephant with one bite. We have jellyfish that can kill a human in minutes. We have frogs whose skin is so poisonous that just touching them can be deadly." The students looked at each other with growing fear. They were beginning to understand that humans did not live on a safe world. They lived on one of the most dangerous planets in the galaxy, surrounded by creatures that could kill them at any moment. "How do you survive?" Kexanova asked. "How do humans live normal lives when they are surrounded by so much danger?" Katie smiled sadly as she continued to help Krex Volume breathe. "We have learned to be careful. We have developed medicines and treatments. We wear protective clothing. We teach our children which creatures to avoid. And we have learned to live with the fact that our world is dangerous." Professor Zekthara was receiving responses to her emergency transmissions. The replies were coming from medical centers across the galaxy, and they were all saying the same thing. No one had any experience with Earth's biological weapons. "The Galactic Medical Council is calling an emergency session," she announced. "They want all our data about this incident." Yulanara looked at her scanner again. "Professor, there is something else. I am detecting similar chemical signatures in many other small creatures around us. The trees, the plants, even the soil has traces of complex biological compounds." Katie nodded. "The whole Amazon ecosystem is like this. Every plant and animal has some kind of chemical defense. Some are mild, some are deadly. That is how nature works here." The sound of helicopter rotors began to echo through the forest. Human medical help was arriving. But even as rescue came closer, the alien students knew that everything had changed. They had come to Earth to study harmless creatures. Instead, they had discovered that Earth's smallest inhabitants were more dangerous than the galaxy's largest. Weapons. And if these tiny spiders could defeat a Titan warrior, what did that say about the humans who lived with these creatures every day? The answer to that question would soon reshape how the entire galaxy viewed Earth and its people. The alien students continued their work in the forest. They had collected 5 different types of tiny spiders. Each container held a creature so small that it looked like a grain of sand. But their machines showed that these tiny spiders had some of the most complex poisons in the galaxy. Katie watched the students work with their advanced equipment. Their scanners could see inside the spiders and map every chemical in their bodies. The technology was amazing, but Katie noticed something that worried her. The aliens did not seem to understand how dangerous these creatures could be. "Please be careful with those containers," she said again. "Even though they are sealed, we should treat them like they hold dangerous chemicals." Professor Zekthara's crystal body glowed as she examined the data. "Dr. Walsh, these readings are remarkable. This tiny Pachu digua spider has venom that could theoretically affect hundreds of different species. The chemical structure is more complex than most weapons we know." Ilanara held up her scanner. "The venom attacks the nervous system, the blood system, and the muscle system all at the same time. It is like 3 different weapons in one." Beckstar looked confused. But how can something so small make enough poison to hurt anything bigger than an ant? Katie tried to explain. It does not need much poison. Spider venom is very concentrated. A tiny amount can have a big effect. Also, the poison spreads through the victim's body, so a small bite can affect the whole creature. Krex Volume had been listening to this conversation with growing irritation. His warrior pride was hurt by all this talk of tiny creatures being dangerous. On his world, strength was measured by size and fighting ability. The idea that something smaller than his fingernail could be a threat seemed ridiculous. "This is foolish," he said, his deep voice rumbling through the forest. "You are all acting like these specks of dust are mighty warriors. I have fought enemies as big as buildings. I have crushed metal robots with my bare hands. I am not going to be afraid of something I can barely see." To prove his point, Krex Volume reached toward one of the containers. He wanted to show everyone that he was not afraid of Earth's tiny creatures. "Wait!" Katie shouted. "Do not touch that." But it was too late. Krexval's massive finger was already moving toward the container that held the Pachu Digwa spider. The container was designed to keep the spider inside, but it was not made to handle the electromagnetic field that came from Krexval's armored skin dot as his finger touched the container. Small sparks jumped between his skin and the glass. The container's sealing system failed. For just a moment, there was a tiny gap in the container's wall. The Pachu Digwa spider, which had been stressed by all the scanning and bright lights, tried to escape through the gap. It was so small that it could fit through spaces that seemed solid to larger creatures. Krex Volume felt something tiny land on his finger. He looked down and saw what looked like a speck of dirt on his armored skin. He started to brush it away without thinking. That was when the spider bit him. The bite happened so fast that no one saw it. The spider's fangs were smaller than the tip of a needle. They found a tiny space between two of Krexval's armor scales, and went deep enough to reach his bloodstream dot at first. Krex Volume felt nothing. He brushed the spider away, and it fell to the forest floor. "See?" he said with a laugh. "Your dangerous earth creature just tickled me." Katie looked at the container and saw that it was open. Her face went white with fear. "Oh no, Krex Volume. You were just bitten by the spider." "Bitten?" Krex Volume laughed even louder. "I felt nothing. If that was a bite, then earth creatures are even weaker than I thought." But even as he spoke, something was happening inside his body. The spider's venom was spreading through his bloodstream. The complex chemicals were finding their way to his nervous system. Krex Volume had 4 hearts, like all members of his species. This made Titan warriors very strong and hard to kill. But it also meant that poison could spread through his body faster than it would in creatures with only 1 heart. 30 seconds after the bite, Krexval's first heart began to beat irregularly. He put his hand to his chest, confused by the strange feeling. "Something is wrong," he said. His voice was not as strong as before. Katie immediately knew what was happening. She had seen spider bite victims before. "Everyone stay back. The venom is starting to work." Professor Zekthara's lights flickered with alarm. "What do you mean? What is happening to him?" "The spider venom is attacking his nervous system," Katie explained quickly. "It will affect his heart, his breathing, and his muscle control. We need to get help immediately." Krexval's second heart joined the first in beating irregularly. Then his third heart began to race. The warrior who had never been defeated in battle was being brought down by a creature he could barely see. "This cannot be happening," Krex Volume said, but his voice was getting weaker. His huge body began to shake within 1 minute of the bite. All 4 of Krexval's hearts were beating in different rhythms. His nervous system was shutting down. The venom was designed by millions of years of evolution to be efficient. It did not waste energy. It found the fastest way to stop its victim. Katie ran to her backpack and pulled out a medical kit. I have some basic anti-venom, but I do not know if it will work on his species. The other alien students watched in shock as their strongest classmate collapsed. Kreck's volume fell to his knees, then forward onto his hands. His 12-foot body shook the ground when he hit. Help him! Yelanara cried out. Professor Zekthara tried to use her medical scanner on Kreck's volume, but the device was not designed for biological poisons. It could heal laser burns and radiation sickness, but it had no protocols for venom. Our medical technology cannot help him, she said with panic in her voice. We have never encountered biological weapons like this. Katie knelt beside Kreksval's massive head. She tried to check his pulse, but his anatomy was too different from humans. I need to know how his body works. Where are his hearts? How does his breathing work? Kreck's volume tried to speak, but his voice was just a whisper now. 4 hearts, ... in chest, ... 3 lungs, ... His words came slowly as the venom affected his ability to control his muscles. Katie had never treated an alien before, but she knew the basics of how venom worked. She began to apply the anti-venom she had, even though she was not sure it would help. Stay with us, Kreck's volume, she said. Fight the poison. Your body is strong. But the other students could see that their warrior classmate was losing the battle against an enemy smaller than a grain of sand. The mighty Titan warrior, who had defeated armies across the stars, was being killed by one of Earth's smallest creatures. The forest around them seemed to grow quiet, as if nature itself was watching this moment when the galaxy's understanding of power and strength was about to change forever. What we discovered on Earth, Professor Zekthara wrote in her report, is that evolution can create weapons more powerful than any technology. The humans who live on this planet are not primitive. They are the ultimate survivors, shaped by billions of years of the most intense biological warfare in the known universe. The alien ship lifted off from the Amazon forest, leaving Katie alone with her spiders and her thoughts. She looked down at a tiny spider web glistening with morning dew. Somewhere in that web was probably another Peichu Digwa, no bigger than a speck of dust, completely unaware that it had just changed galactic history. Katie smiled and shook her head. For 20 years, she had been trying to get people to appreciate how amazing small spiders were. Now, thanks to one tiny bite, the entire galaxy understood. 6 months later, Katie received a message from Kreck's volume. He had returned to his home planet and become a teacher instead of a warrior. He now taught young Titans about the importance of respecting all life forms, no matter how small. I tell my students about the day I was defeated by Earth's smallest spider, his message said. I teach them that true strength comes from understanding, not from fighting. Thank you for saving my life and opening my mind. The message made Katie happy, but it also made her think about what had really happened. The aliens had come to Earth expecting to find weak, primitive creatures. Instead, they found a planet where every living thing was a warrior in its own way. Humans had grown up. On this warrior planet, every human child learned to watch for dangerous creatures. Every human adult knew which plants not to touch and which animals to avoid. Humans had developed medicines from snake venom and spider poison. They had learned to live with danger and turn it into strength. But humans had also learned something else that the aliens were just beginning to understand. They had learned that the smallest creatures deserved respect. A tiny spider was not an enemy to be crushed. It was a neighbor to be understood and appreciated. Katie received many more messages from alien scientists who wanted to study Earth's creatures. But now they approached with proper respect and safety measures. They understood that Earth was not a playground for alien students. It was a university where every creature was both student and teacher. The Galactic Council established. New rules for studying dangerous worlds like Earth. No more casual field trips. No more assumptions about primitive life forms. Every world would be approached with the understanding that evolution could create surprises. Earth's reputation spread throughout the galaxy. Some worlds wanted to trade with humans to learn about biological medicine. Other worlds were afraid and wanted nothing to do with Earth's dangerous creatures. But all worlds agreed on one thing. Humans were not the primitive species they had appeared to be. Humans were survivors who had learned to thrive in the galaxy's most dangerous classroom. They had turned a planet full of biological weapons into a home full of natural wonders. They had learned to live with creatures that could kill them, and in doing so, they had become stronger than any warrior race in space. Years passed, and Katie continued her work studying spiders. Sometimes she would hold a tiny Pachu digua in her hand and remember the day one of its relatives had brought down a 12-foot-tall warrior from the stars. The spider would sit quietly in her palm, its tiny legs moving delicately as it explored this strange new surface. It had no idea that its species had become famous across the galaxy. It was just trying to survive, like every other creature on Earth. Katie would gently place the spider back on its web and watch it disappear into the forest. The human medical team arrived in helicopters just as Krexval's condition became critical. Dr. Greg Martinez jumped out with his team and immediately began working alongside Katie to stabilize the giant alien warrior. "I have never seen anything like this," Dr. Martinez said as he examined Krexval. "His biology is completely different from humans, but the venom is attacking the same basic systems that exist in all living things." Working together, the human doctors and Katie managed to slow the venom's effects. They used a combination of anti-venom, life support machines, and drugs that protected the nervous system. It was not perfect treatment, but it kept Krexval alive. For 3 days, Krexval lay unconscious while his body fought against the spider's poison. The alien students stayed by his side, taking turns monitoring his vital signs with their scanners. They sent constant updates to the Galactic Medical Council. During those 3 days, something important happened across the galaxy. The alien students' report about the spider attack spread to every world in their civilization. The story was simple but shocking. Earth's smallest creature had defeated the galaxy's strongest warrior. On the 3rd day, Krexval finally opened his eyes. He was weak and could barely speak, but he was alive. The first thing he saw was Katie sitting beside him, checking his pulse. "The spider," he whispered. Did it really almost kill me?" Katie nodded. "Yes, you came very close to dying. The venom affected your entire nervous system." Krexval tried to sit up, but found that his muscles were still weak. The venom had caused permanent damage to some of his nerve pathways. He would never be as strong as he was before. "I do not understand," he said. "I have fought armies. I have conquered worlds. How could something smaller than my fingernail defeat me?" Professor Zekthara moved closer to his bed. Her crystal body glowed softly. "That is what we have all learned, Krexval. Size and strength are not the only forms of power in the universe." Over the next few days, as Krexval recovered, the alien students continued their research with new respect for Earth's creatures. They studied dozens of different spiders, snakes, frogs, and plants. Each one taught them something new about biological warfare. Katie showed them a blue-winged octopus that could kill 30 adult humans with one bite. She introduced them to a cone snail that fired poison darts faster than bullets. She explained how some plants could produce toxins that would dissolve metal. "Your entire planet is a biological weapons factory," Yelinara said with amazement. "Every creature here has evolved some way to poison, paralyze, or dissolve its enemies. That is how evolution works on Earth." Katie explained. For billions of years, every living thing has had to compete for survival. The ones that developed the best chemical weapons were the ones that lived long enough to have babies. Meanwhile, news of the spider incident reached the highest levels of galactic government. The Galactic Council called emergency meetings to discuss what this meant for their understanding of Earth and its dominant species. Council leader Prime addressed the emergency session. If Earth's smallest creatures can defeat our strongest warriors, what does this tell us about the humans who live among these creatures every day? The answer came from Professor Zikthara's full report. Humans did not just survive on Earth. They thrived. They had developed immunity to many poisons. They had created medicines for venomous creatures. They had learned to use Earth's biological weapons for their own benefit. The humans are not primitive, Professor Zikthara reported to the Council. They are the most dangerous species we have ever encountered. They have survived for millions of years on a planet that would kill most galactic species within days. The Council reviewed all the data about Earth. They learned about human history, how humans had survived ice ages, plagues, and natural disasters. They learned how humans had developed technology while living surrounded by creatures that could kill them with a touch. The humans did not develop in a safe environment like most of our civilizations, Council Leader Prime announced. They evolved in constant danger. Every human alive today is descended from ancestors who survived on the most dangerous planet we know. This realization changed everything. Earth was reclassified from primitive world to extreme biohazard zone. Humans were reclassified from harmless species to approach with extreme caution. New protocols were established for any contact with Earth. All visitors had to wear full environmental suits. All Earth creatures, no matter how small, were classified as potential weapons. No galactic citizen was allowed to visit Earth without extensive medical preparation. But the most important change was in how the galaxy viewed humanity itself. Humans were no longer seen as weak primitives who had barely discovered space travel. They were now recognized as the toughest, most adaptable species in known space. Back on Earth, Krek's volume was finally strong enough to return to his ship. But he was not the same warrior who had arrived. The spider's venom had left him with permanent nerve damage. More importantly, it had changed how he thought about strength and power. I used to think power came from size and muscle, he told Katie, before leaving. Now I understand that real power comes from intelligence, adaptation, and respect for your environment. Katie smiled. That spider did not try to hurt you. It was just defending itself when it felt threatened. Most Earth creatures are like that. They only attack when they have no other choice. Krek's volume nodded. I will remember that. And I will make sure my people understand what I learned here. As the alien ship prepared to leave Earth, Professor Zikthara compiled her final report. The tiny Pachu Digua spider that had almost killed Krek's volume was now the most famous creature in galactic history. Museums across the galaxy wanted specimens. Military academies made the spider bite incident required study material.